Hey guys, we're shipping today, so I was going to show you kind of what I do. I'm not shipping any fish, but I am shipping snails, which I treat pretty much the same as fish as far as shipping them, and then 2 plant packages. So the first thing I do when I have boxes to ship is, one, I print out a list of everybody that's getting a package and what they're getting. That's kind of like my packing list or whatever, just so I can keep it straight. Then I go ahead and get the boxes together. The plants and the culture, I'm serving 1 culture and 1 plant, that's right. We'll go into small flat rate boxes because they should be okay temperature wise. The plants I'll probably wrap up in newspaper, but they're both pretty hardy and should handle temperature fine. The snails, because I'm shipping 1 box to Montana, those snails will go into an insulated box and get a heat pack, just because I have no clue what the weather's doing in Montana, but I assume it's pretty cold. So they get a heat pack, and then the other snails will not get a heat pack, but they will be in an insulated box. So the first thing I have to do is put these boxes together, and then I'm going to show you how I cut insulation to fit it. Okay, so we have our box made up, and the next thing we need to do is measure the inside dimensions of the box. And we're going to take styrofoam and cut it to fit. This is I think 1/2 inch thick styrofoam. You just get it from the insulation department at any of your home goods stores, Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever. And so we have to do a little bit of math, which is not my strong suit, but we need to make a bottom, 4 sides, and a top. And to do that, we have to account for the thickness of the styrofoam when you're measuring. So that's really important. I think I've forgotten to do that many times. And it's no fun trying to smush the styrofoam in there. So always try to remember to cut your pieces to fit. If you want to be lazy and just charge more money, you can buy boxes that are pre-cut, that come with the styrofoam pre-made, but I ship so infrequently that I just feel bad like gouging my customers for really expensive boxes when it costs me a lot less to buy the materials myself. UPS will send you these boxes for free and just make up the boxes myself. So that's what I do. So we're going to take handy dandy measuring tape, handy dandy Sharpie, measure the box and mark the styrofoam, and then we're going to cut it. And I don't have a hot knife or anything to cut it really nicely. I just have a razor blade, and I can't even find my slanted edge razor blade, so I'm just having to use a straight one, which is going to be more of a pain because you just have to like chop it. But so I'm going to go ahead and get this measured out and cut, and then I'll show you how to fit it into the box. Now, there's got to be a better way to do this without making such a big mess, but I have not found it. So I hate when I have to make boxes. Normally, because I ship so rarely and I bring in stuff quite often, I don't even have to make boxes because I just have boxes. But the only boxes I have right now are big, and I'm a person that doesn't like to waste, so I don't really want to waste a really nice big box on a few snails. So we made a little snowstorm instead, but they're done. Here you can see the box all cut. It's not pretty, but it works. And I've already done the second one. So maybe one day I'll get a really nice styrofoam cutter or start buying nicer styrofoam, but for now, this is what I have and it works just fine. So the next thing we're going to do is pull out the plants and the snails that are getting shipped. I already have the culture ready to go. This is just my second culture. I was going to just send a starter and some eco earth and just leave it at that, but I always like it when I order cultures when they come in a container all pretty much ready to go. So I'm just sending my second culture for April all ready to go, full of springtails and lots of babies. So I need to add a little bit of water into the bottom of this. No, there's some water in there. Okay, so it should be good. So I like getting cultures that are already in a container that they can stay in at least for a little while. This is going to need to be moved into a deeper container eventually, but for right now this has been working fine. So I'm just going to put this in a baggie and tape it up really good so that none of the water leaks out. There's not a lot in there, but I always like to double bag everything. And I'm going to put tape on this lid, even though it's on there pretty good. I worried about the rocks, or not the rocks, but the charcoal in there squishing the bugs, but this is packed down really good. Like when I shake it, it doesn't move. So I don't have any worries that these guys will arrive alive and happy. And then also, anytime I send out cultures, I always send out food to go with them, with the exception of vinegar eels, because I'm not going to send you a piece of apple. But any of my other cultures, I like to send out a little bit of food. So I have some brewer's yeast that'll go with that. That's just going to get, you know, bagged up, taped up, and we'll put it in a little box. But first, we're going to get the snails out and bagged, and then I'll pack everything up. Okay, so snails and plants picked out. I always give extra snails because I just feel iffy about shipping them. I always feel like they're going to die, even though every time I've shipped them, they've arrived alive. So one customer asked for 10 plus some ram's horns, and I'm sending more than that. I don't know how many's in there. 1, 2, 3. There's a bunch of little teeny ones in there that like came stuck to the other snails. So, and then another person asked for 6, and there's about probably 10 in there. Just because I feel bad shipping the little ones. I feel like the little ones are more prone to die than the big ones. So I try to include extras of the little ones. So what I'm going to do now is bag everything up. I've got the plants pulled out too. For snails, I always divide them in half and ship half in one bag and half in another, just in case something were to happen and one dies and fouls the water. The snails in the other bag won't be contaminated. So I don't foresee anything happening. I just try to, you know, put as many safeguards in as possible. Obviously, I'm not going to put one snail per bag, but divide them into a couple bags at least. That way, there's less room for error. The thing to remember if you're ever getting snails is that they can kind of go dormant. I don't know if that's actually what it's called, but they'll suck up into their shells and they'll stay that way for a few days when they've gone through a stressful situation like shipping. So even if you think they're dead, you always need to let them sit in the tank for a couple days and really make sure that they're not alive and just hiding in their shell. Generally, you can tell if they're dead because when they're dead, their bodies come out of their shells and they are really gross and stinky and horrible. But if you just have a snail that's in its shell, most times it's alive, it's just not coming out. Give it time and it'll come out. So that's the snails. And then I already talked about the cultures and the plants. I'm going to see if I can set up my tripod and kind of show you guys how to bag. Of course, it's different bagging fish than it is snails and plants, but there's a few, you know, things that you do regardless, and so I'll show you that. Okay, so when bagging, there's two things you always want to do. One is double bag. Always use 2 bags. And the other thing is make sure you get your knots really, really good and tight. So I have, these bags are 4 by 12 inches. If you're ever buying fish bags, I recommend getting longer ones. You end up with waste because you end up cutting the tops off, but it's so much easier to tie them up when they're longer. These I traded with someone who had rheumatoid arthritis, and she bought bags and they sent her the wrong ones. And so she couldn't do anything with these bags. She couldn't knot them because of, you know, her arthritis. So I traded my bags, which were taller, for these because even though I hate these bags, I can deal with them. So the first thing you want to do, if I remember to do it on camera, stretch the bag open. It just makes it easier to get stuff in there. Then you're gonna pour a little water in there. This is clean water. It does have some duckweed from when I grabbed the snails out, but it's not tank water. And you just want, this is actually too much water for snails. For snails, you want just enough water that they can be covered, but you don't really need a whole lot because they'll climb out of the water. So a little bit of water, and then we'll pick up some of the snails if they'll let go. Stick them in the bag. These little ones are so hard to pick up. Alright, so we have 5 snails in one bag, and then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 7. Oh, here's a little one that fell out. Okay, 6 snails in this bag, and I think I have 7 more left, but I divided up the big ones. So this one has more big ones. This next bag will have only 1 big one and a lot of little ones. So once you have your snails in there, my tripod's not tall enough to do this. Hold on. Okay. Once you have your bag, you're going to kind of open it up so there's air in there, and then just close it. And then kind of choke it down and twist it to trap the air in there. Voila. And then these bags are thick, so what I do is I stretch the tail and then I knot it. I don't use rubber bands. I prefer knots, and that might just be a Betta person thing. All the Betta shows we do knots, but you know, there's no reason that you can't do a rubber band and a knot. So there we go. Then what you do, once you pull your knot nice and tight, you get another bag. You stretch it really, really good. Believe me, the stretching is important. Otherwise, you're in for a headache. Then you can either cut this knot, or, I mean, not this knot, this little tail. I just fold it over, and then you put the first bag into the second bag, knot side down. That's very important. Why? Because if this knot leaks, it will be in the bottom of this bag. So it's less likely to become an issue with it leaking out into the box. And again, just twist it, pull it, and knot it. These bags are also thicker than what I normally buy, so they're hard to knot. Luckily, I'm almost out of them, and then I can order more. Okay, so that's snails number 1. What I'm gonna do now, if I can find my Sharpie, I'm gonna write the name of the person who's getting the snails, which is Madison. And I'm gonna put bag 1 of 2. So when I'm packing the boxes, this tells me I need 2 bags with the name Madison on them. Second bag will be in here. Now I'm gonna do the plants next because I'm not gonna show filming me packing all these snails. Now for plants, I just do all 1 bag, and I have larger bags for plants that I also use for shipping my wilds. So these bags are, I think, 6 by 14. So what I do, open it up real good. I don't put a lot of water with my plants, just a little bit. Oops, or just drop it all over the place. This is hard to do on camera. Harder to do than I thought it would be. So a little bit of water in the bag. The plants don't need a whole lot of water. And then I just grab them all up. Nice big group of guppy grass. And scoot it on down. And then again, you just, excuse me. Again, you just grab it and kind of choke it down to about, let's see, about there. These are going in a flat rate box, so we gotta make sure it fits. Sometimes you have to redo it a couple times. And knot it. And because I don't want to waste all my good fish bags, and there's not a whole lot of water in here, what I'll do is I'll put it instead of double bagging it, I'll put it in a Ziploc bag. Because if the water leaks out, it's really not going to harm the plants. They'll be okay because they'll stay humid in this bag. But I'm going to put it in a Ziploc bag just to save my nice fish bags. So I'm going to turn the camera off, finish packing, and then we'll get these boxes taped up and sent out. Well, this isn't going to work. This container is bigger than I thought it was. Luckily, I always keep a few extra Amazon boxes around, so never fear. I'll just stick it in there and pad it with newspaper. Hopefully the shipping's the same. It should be pretty close to the same since UPS keeps raising prices on its flat rate boxes, which is ridiculous. But that's alright. This is why it's always a good idea to have a few extra boxes around that are weird sizes like this. Just stick this in like that, and it'll be good to go. Boom. Okay, so I've got plants packed, cultures packed now, and now we're going to do the snails. And even though they're already double bagged, I still put the bags in another bag. Ziploc bag or grocery store bag. You know, whatever I have around. I try to situate them in the box so that the inside knot is up. Now we all know that there's no way to trust UPS or USPS to keep the boxes upright when they're, you know, handling them, but at least we can try. And so if the box is sitting up and the inside knot is facing up, they can't leak. So that's the reasoning for that. So just take a box or take a bag, stick it in a box. I write the name of the customer on the box so I can remember who's who as I go to print labels. And again with the same, and then I'll grab a heat pack for the one that's headed toward Montana. I'm pretty sure the other one will be fine. Snails can handle pretty low temperatures, so I'm not gonna bother with a heat pack for the other one. So we put it in a box, pack it down with some newspaper. I'll grab more and fill it up. And that's really it. Stuff that in there. Okay. Now for the heat packs, I use the Uni Heat. This one's 60 hours. Normally I use 72. I think I ordered these on accident, but they've been working fine. So you take the heat pack out to get it activated. And what I do is tape it to the top of the top piece of styrofoam foam in the box with the red line facing down. And what I'll do is I'll tape on the outside and stick that in the box for heat. And really that's all there is to it. So I'm going to tape everything up now, drop it off at the post office, clean up all the styrofoam, and then we'll set up and do a little bit of picture taking. Okay, so I have my light box set up, and this is a Limo Studio light box. It was actually donated to the club for use at the shows, and now it lives with me, so I get to use it for my own fish as well as using it at the shows. I have to buy a new background because it comes with a few different colored backgrounds, and it must have gotten wet at some point, and the color from the red background bled onto the white one, which is a bummer, but you know, not a big deal. You don't have to use a light box when you're taking pictures. I just have it, so I use it. You can also build these for really cheap using like a white t-shirt and a cardboard box. The main thing is you want really bright light. So I have a clamp lamp on top that has a really bright LED bulb in it. And then the second thing is you always want to use flash when you're taking pictures of bettas, because that's what will show off their colors and their iridescence the best. So the camera I use is just a cheap point and shoot. It's a Panasonic Lumix, but it does well enough for my purposes, which is usually just taking pictures of fish to sell. So when I'm taking pictures of fish, I grab usually a male and a female or 2 males, and I'll put them in the box and let them get comfortable and start flaring. And while they're, you know, settling in, you can see this girl's pretty pale. Sometimes they get stressed when you take them off the shelf and put them under a bright light. But while they're doing this, I'll go ahead and wipe the water spots off the jars. Sometimes it helps if you put a tiny drop of rubbing alcohol on the end of your cloth. But I'll just wipe it off and then take pictures. Now, a trick to getting it to focus that I've discovered over the years is you want to hold down the capture button until it focuses, then you take a picture. Now this guy's, a lot of times they'll get freaked out by the camera. So you just let them settle down and get more comfortable. But when you're trying to take pictures of bettas to sell, you want them flaring and you want a good side shot. So you wait until they're turned to the side, they're fully flaring, and that's when you take a picture. Unless you're trying to be artsy and, you know, get a more of an artsy style photo. But if you're looking to, you know, advertise bettas for selling, you want a nice side shot, kind of like this, just like he is right now, because that is what's going to show off his form the best. So it just, getting good pictures of fish takes tons and tons of practice. That's really the only thing. And you have to accept the fact that you will have to take like 500 pictures to get like 10 that are good, because they're always moving and you always end up with the fish not in focus, or, you know, he swam away just as soon as the picture was getting taken. All this kind of stuff. I'm going to card them up so they'll settle down and I can take good pictures of them after I turn the camera off. But, yeah, so those are just my little photography tidbits. Another one I've picked up is if you get the camera to focus on the fish's head or eye, that will bring the rest of the fish into focus. So if you take a picture and the fish's tail is in focus but not his head, it's going to make it look like the entire photo is blurry. So you always want to try to get their face in focus the most. So again, when you're lining the fish up in your sights, this is like camera inception. It's a camera inside of a camera. But always line the fish up in that little green box to get your picture. And if I can, let me see if I can replay that. And you see it's pale. He's pale, but he's in focus. Whereas if I only took a picture of his tail, you can see it's a lot more blurry. Oh, let me go back to it. It's a lot more blurry. So always focus on his head. Try to get a side shot when he's flaring. Always use flash and use bright light. And don't be afraid to play with different backgrounds. Some fish I take pictures against blue background or a black background. Some do better on white. Like, of course, this fish is black, so he's naturally going to look better against a white background. You can also play with lighting, you know, taking the lighting off from overhead and kind of facing it toward the front or from the side, or even moving it you know, different areas overhead. And sometimes it even helps to have several lights set up from different angles. So just play around with it, and practice makes perfect. Now, if we're talking about getting pictures of fish in tanks, that's a lot harder. For one thing, they have more room to move around, so it's easier for them to scoot out of focus really quick. And for another, you know, the tank is so deep that you can lose the light. So one thing I do if I want to take pictures of my fish is I pull the light really close, and that way the fish will be lit up as much as you can, and then when you take your picture, hopefully, if I grab my camera, hopefully he'll be in focus. And of course, fish like goldfish that are always moving are a lot harder to get pictures of. Than bettas, which tend to, you know, flare and strike a pose. Okay, so that's a pretty good one. So bring the light forward. Again, try to get the fish in focus before you press the button down, and just take tons and tons and tons of pictures. Eventually you will get a couple that are in focus. These guys think I'm gonna feed them. So those are just my photography tips. I'm by no means a good, you know, photographer. I don't have a really expensive fancy camera. I just take a lot of pictures, and these are the tips I use to get the best pictures that I can with what I'm working with. So lots of light, use focus, use the macro or the flower setting on your camera. This, if I can focus it in the little flower right down there, use that. It's for up close photography. You always want to use that setting when you're taking pictures of fish. Play around with flash. Most of the time you will need the flash to get a good in focus picture, but sometimes you can get a good picture without flash. It just all depends on lighting. You have to get the right lighting. So I'm gonna take some pictures of these guys. These are the new fish I got in last week, or maybe it's been 2 weeks now. And I always like to get really good pictures of them before I breed them. Oops, I scared him. Before I breed them, because I, you know, make spawn logs and genealogy charts and all that. So I like to have a good picture that, you know, maybe 5 generations from now I can look back and say, oh, that fish's grandfather was a Milano half moon and he looked like this. So that's why I like to get good pictures. And then I have some fish that are going up for auction for the Eastern Betta Society to raise money for the show, so I'll have to get pictures of them and get those all posted up. But I just figured I'd, you know, do a quick talk about how to get good pictures of bettas, specifically if you're talking about getting them for sale, or if you just want to, you know, play around with photography and taking pictures of bettas. Small container that's not deep front to back. Like you can see, this is only 4 inches front to back. Because the deeper it is, the light, it gets lost in the back. I don't know the photography terms for it, but the more shallow a tank is front to back, the easier it is to get the fish in focus. So lots of light, practice focusing, and just play around with it, and just take tons and tons and tons of pictures, realizing that you're gonna have to sit here for a few hours and take, you know, 500 pictures of 4 fish and only get 10 that are usable. That's just how it works. So that's all. I will see you guys tomorrow. I don't really know what we're doing tomorrow. Maybe just regular tank maintenance. We'll see. I shipped all those packages out, so hopefully they arrive safely and alive and all that good stuff. And hopefully the fish that I have coming in next week will arrive the same. So, alright. Chat at you guys tomorrow.